Hoki mai ki te whare, hoki mai ki te puni I pāho, ko tahi te kaupapa he manaaki I tēnei reo ātāhua ko te reo Māori. It's Ari and Vinny, and we're on our journey through life, uncovering how we as a whānau can reach our wawata, our dreams for language within our whare. If you've been listening since Epi 1, you will know almost all of that te reo Māori I just spoke, so well done. What an achievement. We're getting along on our learning journey. So welcome back. Today we are so excited to bring you our second guest epi for this season of Tū Kapu Tū Kōrero. Today we are meeting Carthi and Thuvaraka, two Sri Lankan superheroes who have a shared community language they hold dear to them in Aotearoa. That language is Tamil. We want to thank both of these incredible tua wahine for coming on to the podcast and showing us how they maintain their language here. Māori are so often bound by the idea of raising a Māori-speaking family, but we face so many societal reasons in that struggle. I think it makes sense to ask the question, how do other language groups maintain their ancestral languages here? Well, we're about to find out. In this episode, we are revising language that we've learnt and seen before. Hea ha te mate, what's the problem, what's going on? And moia te reo, bed the language. You'll know that my feelings on this proverb, this whakatauki, not so sure about it, but I know it's part and parcel of everyday reo life. So, hey, let's revise it. While you're there, you might know the word moi for sleeping. Moia, when we add that little word, we can turn it into a little bit of a command like moia, go and sleep. Go and sleep with that thing. Moia te reo. You can do that with lots of words, so let's pick another one, kōrero. If I look that up in the dictionary, I'd see the little tail that I can use with kōrero. It's not a. A is for moia and some other words. Kōrero can take a few, but I'm going to use tia. Kōrero tia. Moia, kōrero tia. What if I said kōrero tia te reo? Speak the language. Think about other ways you might be able to manipulate these sentence structures that we've been learning with other words you know. Look them up in the dictionary and just see how much you can already do with this language. Alright team, no more from me. It's time to find out if we are tū kapu tū kōrero.
Vanakkam, morena, and hello. My name is Harthiga Gnanam Thuvaraka. I'm with my cousin here. And today we're going to talk about languages and how important they are.
Kia ora. Kia ora whānau. Vanakkam. My name is Harthiga Gnanam. Yet to change my name now that I'm married, but another thing. Here with my basically twinsies cousin, freckle face, loud and annoying, and we're actually really excited to talk about our language journey with our two buddies here, and two very different experiences, but very similar as in some instances. So I hope you enjoy.
Well, first, Carthi, do you want to talk about how we know each other?
All right, yeah. So me and Ari go way, way, way back. We both went to the same kindy. We went to the same primary, which also has intermediate on it. Ramwick School, represent. And then we only sort of split when it got to high school. But then we've always still maintained some sort of interaction and catching up through something. We've always, you're my sister. And we're actually used to be best buddies, and then we went to primary and then swapped best buddies, but then we still maintained our same little friend circle. But so we go way back, and she knows everything.
I do, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, and recently she was in my wedding, which is amazing.
One of the most beautiful days, one of the most beautiful weddings I've ever been to, and I was like, damn, this is like flash.
I love dressing you all up in saris. It was fun.
Yeah,
That's cool.
beautiful. And so I've met you.
We've
a
met
long
at
time ago.
Carthi's birthday actually.
Numerous days.
Yes.
Well, thank you for coming today
Yeah,
to
no,
put up with
it's a
her a little bit longer. Tell us a bit about your families. When did they come to New Zealand?
So our family came here before Tuara's family did. It was first my dad that came over. So his older sister had actually already come and settled here, and she just asked him to sort of come over and see what it's like, because we won't be able to get into the history of our country too much, but a lot of civil conflict, genocide, and a whole lot of fighting and stuff going on then. So it was also a time where a lot of people were trying to get out. And so he actually came here on a visitor visa, like a touristy visa, whatever it was called back then. And then he saw her, and then it was like, this is good country, safe, because he'd just been, was about to get married to my mum. And then was like, where's this going to go? There's fighting happening at home. Maybe I could come here. And then so he'd sort of just walked in to looked in like an ad in the newspaper, and there was like this job going at this factory, and then because he worked on a ship, and then he was like, oh, maybe be able to cross that over here. He had limited, and the man travelled all over the world. Like, he's fine, he could handle himself. He's a bit younger. If you try to get him to do that now, it won't happen. But and then sort of just talked to him about his situation. He's here on, he came to see his sister, and then the other ones that sort of helped him to get the next lot of visa, and then bring mum over when he eventually got married and that sort of jazz. So then he went. This was back in 1984, and then he went back. They got married in 86, and then he came over first. And then immigration-y stuff. And then mum came over, and she was pregnant with my brother then. So I only have one sibling. My older brother and I were both born here. And at that time it was just Piriamami, so older sister, her family, their 4 kids, my dad, and another sister was on the way. And they sort of started it for everybody to sort of move here. So I think eventually over the following 5 or 6 years, because you guys came in
98.
So it would be across that decade, then really all of the siblings slowly started to come over, and it was on both sides as well. So my auntie is my dad's older sister, but her husband, his whole family also all came over here. There was only a couple that was in, I think, England and Australia, but it was conflict sort of helped to sort of push them out. They wanted to be in a safe place, and New Zealand was that. So big chunk of the family's still here. Only 2 of the siblings are in Australia now, but we still have a big cohort here, and they would never leave. My mum and dad would never leave. They'd never go back to. Dad has dreams of I want to go back to my homeland before I die, but mum has now, well, same with dad as well actually, they've lived longer in New Zealand than they did in Sri Lanka.
Wow. In my family, we came here in 98. Dad is Carthi's dad's older brother. He was the last to hold off and not make a move. He wanted to stay in Sri Lanka, but then I think my auntie, the same auntie that Carthi was talking about, said, okay, this is the last time I can try for this visa for you. If you don't come, that's it. And I think my mum and dad talked about it, and they decided to move. And the reason for that is because my older brother was a teenager, and during the conflict, a lot of teenagers would join the rebel forces to fight. And my parents didn't want that for my older brother. They wanted us to all get a good education and settle down in a safe place. So we moved here in 98. I remember my uncle came over and said, this is the last chance, and he came over with a permanent visa and said, if you don't come now, we can't do anything about it. So I remember my father sold off all of everything that we had and decided to move here. And my parents were a bit older then. Carthi's parents and all the other uncles and aunts who came, so it was a little bit harder for them. But now, looking back, both my parents are like, I wish we'd come here a bit earlier because we would have had better health and the ability to give the children a better life. And that was the main reason that they came here, was to make sure we had all the opportunities that they didn't in Sri Lanka. I think life in Sri Lanka is really hard. If we had stayed, I'm not sure that we would be I definitely know we won't be as well off as we are now, or well educated, or
even alive, bro. Straight up.
Yeah. So I'm just thankful that we moved to New Zealand of all places as well. It's so quiet, and the people here are just so lovely. And I think I've noticed that the Māori culture is very similar to our culture as well. I'm really happy that I'm here. The peace that you get here, it's just, we would constantly be moving around and almost running for our life, so it's totally different. You don't really have time for extended family as such.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. When your whānau came here, did they ever say, he aha te wawata? What is the dream for what they wanted for their children in terms of language and culture before coming? Do you think that was a thing that they considered?
No. It was safety, and then moreover than language would have been providing education and like a safe haven. That was it. And then I think the questions of, oh crap, now that we're here, how are we going to make sure they speak our language and know the things we do and cook and eat the things we do, sort of was like secondary. And I'm very fortunate in that we had, our family was here, so our interactions with them was in Tamil. And specifically for me, my mum's parents lived with us. So at home, it was, grandma, grandpa, amama, baba was always with them, and we were talking to them. And also, there's Wellington Tamil Society here that actually celebrating 40th year in running this year. So I think they knew earlier on that, there are people here, we need to connect, and there was that, and Tamil school as well. So
I don't think my parents were actually worried. I think they were worried about the reverse potentially, because we had grown up. I was 9 when I came here. My younger brother was 6, and my older brother was nearly 18. I think they may have thought how hard it's going to be for us to learn English here, because especially for my older brother, because he wouldn't be going through the school system all the way through. So it was the reverse. But I don't think we ever took any steps to learn English before we came here. It was sort of, we need to leave, let's not worry about anything until we get there. And I think one of my first memories of the English language was, I remember when I started at Worcester Bay School in Miramar, and and when they gave us homework, I don't think I understood the concept of homework. I was in year 4, and so what I would do is the math stuff was so easy, numbers, universal language. I'd do all of the maths and leave everything at school. I wouldn't bring back any homework. And then my aunt, the same one that helped us get here, she had a parent-teacher interview with the teachers, and they must have said, oh, look, she's not doing any of her homework. I didn't understand that's what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to take it home and bring it back. So then she would, in the evenings, sit and tutor me and my younger brother. She's done a lot for us.
That's amazing. Do you sort of remember the time where all of a sudden you were multilingual?
You know what?
Multiple languages.
It's because I suddenly realized that I was dreaming in English.
Wow.
And that was the point where I thought, I've crossed over. Yeah, I think that's the first time I realized that I've got a good grasp on English because I started dreaming in English. Then it was a downhill slope for Tamil because, like Carthi says, there was all this Tamil school and all of these cultural events that they would do on an annual basis. But my parents, they both worked on the weekends and we weren't able to go to Tamil school. I didn't think of it as a big deal then. I remember I when I first came here, I was able to write letters to my grandmother in Tamil. Now I have a hard time reading. Yeah. And I lost the language because I was so I concentrated on learning English to fit in here that I sort of left my Tamil behind. And now I wish I had gone to Tamil school so that I would have learned to read and write and still maintain. So I don't know that I'm fully bilingual because I can't write in Tamil. It's a shame.
There must be a lot of, like between different families, different Tamil families, there must be lots of diversity in people reading and writing because some people would have had that exposure, some people wouldn't like it. There must be lots of diversity, right? And because you're born multilingual, right?
Which was weird because I actually didn't speak any English until I went to kindy because my grandparents were with me, right? And so at home, like, you know, same thing, mum and dad were at work and so I was at home. And like my granddad spoke amazing English and my grandma actually studied quite high level of like, what is it? English medium is what they call it in Sri Lanka. So like you were taught syllabus in English. But at home, because, you know, we're at home, so they talk to you in Tamil, they tell you rhymes in Tamil. And I went to kindy and I was like, I had no idea. And then apparently, like, that's when they thought, oh crap, you know, she doesn't know the language here. And mum was just like, it wasn't even a month and you were already spouting off like English words and stuff and you picked it up really.
So fast.
Yeah, you know, overachiever. But like, so up until then I hadn't really used English as much. But then from then it was both.
Yeah.
It was both. And then it was weird. Someone when I was at high school asked me, they're like, do you think in English or in Tamil? And then I was like, who? What? Because I was like, I don't know, I just think. And they're like, yeah, but what language do you think in? And I was like, I just stopped to make like a conscious effort to be like, what language do I think in? Like, what? But then it's weird. I don't know if you do this.
No, I do
but
that all the
depending
time.
on the circumstance, like, is it to do with like a cultural family thing? It's in Tamil. And then if it's like catching up, whatever,
yeah.
it's in English.
But then I think in English and translate in Tamil now. And I speak more Tamil at home now because my husband only migrated here about 8 years ago.
Yeah,
so he likes to speak in Tamil. That's the more comfortable language for him. But I find that that's changing now as well. He's picking up more of the English and we're having more conversations in English. But then I remember I used to think in English, translate it in Tamil, and then tell him, speak to him that way. But now it's about half and half for me. Yeah.
So my husband just got here last year, and we're in that weird space where I'm like, I actually want. Yeah, I went to Tamil school. I learnt and I could read and write. I can read fine, but like really slowly. I have no reason to write, so I'm not as good with that. And then now these guys, there are way more resources available to do that. So like I myself have even bought some like chapter. I love reading, so now I've got Tamil chapter books to help me with that. Cool. But phrases and some things like that I don't know, like and we spoke about it when we were getting to know each other as well. I was just like, I want you to teach me, like, if I'm saying things wrong, correct me, and same with him. Like, he will, because they were taught British English, and, you know, we're quite casual and, like, real chill about, he still doesn't get yeah, no. He's like, what is that? What, is it a yes or a no, or what is it? And I'm like, well, it's both. It's acknowledging the first part by saying yeah, and the response is nah. Like, ugh. But so I do talk to, like, at home it's mainly in Tamil now, like, but then when he'll try and fork off like writing emails and stuff back to people, oh, you write it, I'm like, no, you need to write it so that, you know, you improve your grammar and stuff. And so it's like this weird balance that we kind of try to maintain, but like in general, aside from, this is really bad, but swearing and stuff is in English, but like most of the conversations are in Tamil, and I love it because it's like made my Tamil much better.
But then like when you're arguing, that's when it gets good, because then I'm arguing in English.
So tell us the gossip.
No, I argue in English, and he'll like argue in Tamil, because that's like the strongest. Like, and I think when you're arguing, you're like you're saying words, but you know you're not waiting to translate. So he'll be like arguing to me in Tamil, and I'll be like repeating in English. It's quite funny because you know you stop and laugh.
It's so true though, right? Because when you're upset or really happy, like
what's
any
the language?
super emotional, you know, really tired probably as well, like you'll revert to the stronger one because your emotions or your energy is in the way there, so you revert to your stronger one.
Absolutely right. I find that to be the case.
True. So like when I tip with my parentals, not often, good child, that's in Tamil. But then, like, when I used to fight with Anna, which is my older brother, it starts off with insults in Tamil, and then it goes straight to English.
I went on a school excursion. I volunteered, and they took the kids to Te Papa. And the first thing the teacher says when they get out of the bus is "whakaahua mai." Like, you know, that it's so common how they use it now, and it's nice to see all the children will give them their attention, and it's just natural. It's nice,
and that's how it was for us at Ramwick. Like anything from, did you wear shoes inside at your school when you went to school? Yeah, we didn't. Your shoes off. You don't sit on tables. We always said like morning karakia before lunch, and then karakia for the end of the day. And like it was always what I loved about it at school as well is we're always the junior whānau, middle whānau, senior whānau, and there was always trying to link everybody together, and a lot of the cultural aspects were taught to us at school. And that it was major shock. Like, I mean, going to high school is already like, whoa, damn, but it was just like so disconnected from how we were brought. Like everybody was all tight, everybody's all good, we were like, you know. And then you went from that to like nothing. I didn't have, unless you took Te Reo as a language, you got nothing.
I think it was one of the compulsory classes for us up to like year 10.
Did you? At high school?
At high school.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had like one Newlands College. I remember going to Māori class, and that was my first exposure to Māori. We talk about things like the pepihai, and I don't think I understood the importance of it until I started working, and how much they're using Māori in the work environment now. That's pretty cool. I think Māori brings people together, like of all walks, to have something special and something different from anywhere else in the world. It's a shame that they're going to. Well, I don't know if the workplace will actively work on, because I work in government. I don't know if because they haven't done anything to actively stop us from using Māori, even though the government has said of what they've said. It'll be interesting to see where it leads to, but I think it'll be a shame, because it's just a stop and reflect moment. No, I don't see what the harm is in incorporating a language, one of our official languages, into the workplace.
There is no harm.
It's not like they're forcing us to do it. If we're willing to do it, then why deter us?
I know.
If we're just talking casually
Yeah,
at the water
exactly.
cooler, like, you can't do anything about that.
You know what Cubby said to me? This was really like hit me hard when they first offered, hey, we're going to have a guy. He volunteers and teaches us Te Reo. He's not being paid for it. He just does it. And what's really cool about him, just detouring for a second, he's a teacher before, and he learnt Te Reo because he had a kid come into his class who only spoke reo. He didn't know anything else, and he was like, well, I can't communicate with him, so I want to learn. And then he just absolutely loves it. He teaches me so much. I'm like, I love you. But anyways, when we were talking about it, and then when Cubby came here, I was just like, what do you mean people don't speak Māori? Yeah, it's not, you don't have to learn it. And he was just like, but that's one of the native people here. And I was like, yep. And he was just like, so then why don't you know it? And I was like, I did know it! Like, I used to learn it, and we used to speak. And he's like, but it's not compulsory. And then we were just talking, and then he was just like, and I was like, oh, I really want to go to class, but it's like, you know, I don't know if it's going to conflict with work stuff. And he was just like, well, are you not kind of doing what people are doing to us back home in Sri Lanka by oppressing the language and everything by not learning this?
Mic drop.
And I was like, true. And I was just like, I mean, I don't have anything against the language. I'm gutted that I didn't maintain that same level and like let it grow with me. But when he said that, I was just like, oh snap.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think of it like that. It was just, oh yeah, like just in my own little like people just don't.
We take it for granted.
Yeah, exactly. Like you know, whatever, you can pick it up later, whatever. And then when he said it, I was like, ooh. Our people are fighting so hard for us to have our voice and everything heard back in Sri Lanka. And then, you know, if we sort of don't do that here, how are we any different? And I was like, maybe that boy was wise, married him for a reason. And then we shared, like, in our, like, at the very first class, he asked us, he's like, why are you here? Well, like, why, you know, let's learn about you guys. And then a lot of ours was social workers and financial mentors. And when I shared mine, the room just went quiet. And I was like, yeah, like, this is actually way beyond just not speaking the language. And I was like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, feel the awkwardness, whānau.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but it's so true because, like, when anyone ever says anything around any kind of multilingualism, like there'll be people who say the same thing about Tamil, and you know all of our languages experience that kind of like you know, you shouldn't learn it because it's this, that, and the next thing. Like all of that stuff is felt so internally by all of us. You know, when we hear it, when it's being said about our own languages, but when you bring it out into the open, makes everyone sit in it a little bit, and they're awkward, and then they go, okay, nah, I need to at least not stop other people from doing it.
Yeah. I was almost embarrassed to speak Tamil.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know, because
did you think like it wasn't
cool enough? But now I regret that feeling because it's who I am and it's who I should have been from the start. Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot in a previous podcast, and one of the questions Vinny had asked me when I talked about my experiences with the language and feeling whakaahua or embarrassed that I maybe didn't know enough or trying to throw something else and people going, okay, ooh, whatever. Where do you think that feeling comes from?
I think it's not saying the right thing or not having it reciprocated as well, because I mean I'd love to go and have a full-on chat with you in Tamil, but then are you going to you know, bring that back to me as well, or are you going to respond in English? And then that's what we feel more comfortable in. But it's like stepping out of your comfort zone and saying, hey, this is my language, I'm going to use it. If you don't like it, you can talk in English, but I'm going to respond to you in Tamil. So I make it a point to say vanakkam now when I go and see another Tamil person, because it's like, that's how I'm going to greet you.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Because that's my language. You know it and I know it. Let's use it. Yeah, I school some of the old people, like, because we call it Tanglish when you like Tamil English. And then like I try whenever I'm speaking to like another, like a grown up, I speak in Tamil, and then when they respond to me in English, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Excuse me, you're the older person here. Like, I spoke to you in Tamil. Like, and then in some places it's a status thing. Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
Oh, my children, like, and they think it's like really like cool or something or prestigious to be like, oh, they don't speak Tamil, they just speak English. And then I'm like, what is that? What? And then like there's some family that live in like Canada where they're like, oh yeah, like, you know, in Montreal, so they speak it's like French Canadian there as well. And they're like, they learn you know, so this is two different family members. One's like the children know French, Canadian, English, and they can speak Tamil. And she's made a point of making sure that they know all of that, because she's like, you know, future-proof wise as well, like French, Canadian, that sort of lingo will help them job-wise opportunities. But Tamil, we are Sri Lanka Tamil. You learn you learn our language. And then the opposite is a cousin who's just like, oh, well, we're in an English-speaking country. You just learn English. It doesn't matter about Tamil. You know, that's not going to bring you any benefit. And so there's like two different things of that. I get that here for some like uncles and aunties that go like, you straight up all this like, you know, hello mama, like a pretty gringo, and then they'll be like, yeah, I'm doing well, how are you? And I'm like, excuse you? Like what? So that's weird. And then, you know, it's really
and then you feel a bit what's the word, like disheartened, and you're like, okay, then you carry on in English.
I judge them inside. I don't feel I'm sorry. I'm just like, oh, what are you doing? Like, like, and then I go back to, I was born and raised here and I can speak it. Like, what are you doing?
Does your community talk about language? For example, how Māori stress the importance of te reo and using it. Have you ever discussed the state of the language? Did you ever say, he aha te mate, what's going on? The language is in danger. Or is it in a healthy space? Or is it even a thing? So it sounds like there's a few speaker communities going on.
Yeah.
No, I think wider Tamil community, there is a understanding that we need to grow Tamil in Wellington and New Zealand. Yeah, and people do work together. So there we do have like the punga, which is for under fives. The children, they go and it's on Saturdays. They just play together, and it's nice that they hear Tamil being spoken to them. And so it's just like a kindy day, but everything, it happens in Tamil. We make a little bit of an effort to teach them something small every day.
Cool.
And then there's Tamil school for 6 and above.
Yeah.
I think does it go up to 18?
It goes quite high.
Yeah.
Because they've changed the way they assess it and stuff now.
Yeah. And then we do some Australian Tamil competitions. Yeah, so spoken, they do poetry, they do some tirukural, which is like a... What is tirukural?
What is that in English?
It's not poetry, but it's a religious text. So that those are just like all memorizing competitions, and it's a good way for the children to become confident in speaking Tamil, confident in just speaking in front of crowds. So those kinds of stuff. And then there's always religious programs that we have, cultural events. So there is a push to bring Tamil to the...
I wouldn't say it's like healthy that you don't have to worry about it. They do.
Yeah,
they genuinely do.
It,
and it's more like youth engagement. And then a lot of the things that they bring up is that, you know, if the older so like our parents' generations, if they didn't push for certain things, would you guys even do it? You know, like... And then, so that's where I'm actually maybe going to be on the Tamil Society. I asked for it, but it was like community engagement. And I said, you know, a big thing is that, one, it wasn't considered cool to be linked with it because you were a bunch of oldies that did like boring stuff that didn't really resonate with the kids. If you want them to like get involved, you need to do things that are going to get them engaged.
And I think our generation and just a little bit older, they are making an effort now.
Yes.
20 years ago, maybe not so much because people were busy trying to acclimatize here. But now it's gone back to, we do need to bring Tamil back.
That brings me quite a lot of comfort because all Māori communities talk about is preservation and maintenance and revival of our stuff.
Yeah, and this is why I'm saying that the Māori
Yeah.
culture and the Sri Lankan Tamil culture is similar in, you know, in respect for your elders and keeping the culture going. All of those things, there's lots of similarities that I find.
And a big chunk of it is probably that it got shut down, that wasn't, that you shouldn't have importance on it. Even like a little thing, like I didn't know when I was at school, my name spelled really weird, the proper, like the English version of it. And so at school, up until like, they would always call me Harthiga. And then I was just like, oh, that's just how they say my name.
yeah.
Like, I didn't know to correct them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I should say, that's not my name. My name's Carthiga. You're saying it wrong. Like, what are you doing? And up until uni, well, no, I thought I had an English name and a Tamil name up until like midway through primary, and I was just like, oh, I've got two names. Like, you know, I've got an English one and a Tamil one. And then it was, no, you don't. They just say your name wrong. And I was, oh, okay.
And I was one of them.
I'm sorry. But I never corrected you. Like, that's, and then you can tell who I've met at different points in my life, because it was only at uni when for halls of residence, so they put your name above the door, and then it's all like, leave your doors open so you can all mix and mingle and get to know each other and all this. I was unpacking in my room, and this guy straight up came read it, and he's like, what even is a Harthiga? Like, is that a boy or a girl? Like, what is that? And then I was like,
Gross.
I'm gonna make like no friends here. No one's gonna come talk to me. So I went down to my like is it Ari? Yeah, and I was just like, hey, can I get a different label for my room? And then the other thing is, I don't get full named unless I'm in trouble. So it's Carthi, like, all the time. Unless I've done something, it's like, Carthiga!
Yeah.
Oh.
I do that with Adi as well. If he's in trouble, he gets, Āotearoa, the Milanathan, come here. If he hears full name, he'll know that he's in trouble.
And so I asked to get Carthi written, and then people were like, oh, Carthi. So, like, everybody from, like, 18 onwards that I've met, and in work now, everybody just calls me Carthi. Because I'm like, that I've corrected them, and I'm like, this is how it is. But I didn't know, nor was it said to, you know, correct that they're saying your name wrong. That's wrong. That's not how that you say your name. You know, and there wasn't even like a, you know, sometimes when you go to read something, you're like, bro, I don't know. How do you say this? Like, you know, and I do this. I'll be like, I don't want to butcher it. Can you just tell me how to say it? You know? No one ever asked me that through primary or anything. It was just her, cool. You know? And I was just like, I only thought about that later. I was just like, man, like...
But a child shouldn't have to, or a young person shouldn't have to dream that stuff up like all by themselves. But also it feels like a bit strange that we're always expected in our cultures to...
Make it easier
to make it easier
others.
to accommodate, to bring ourselves down in order to accommodate somebody else's like just deficiency, really. Just a bit sad.
And sometimes that can, even though it's our name, that can be sometimes an unsafe space to correct people. I mean, and we don't have to use this company. I'm not going to say any names, but I remember being in a group with you, and you saying Kartika. And someone sitting there goes, that's too hard. And I was kind of like, what? But and you had just finished saying that that's how you wanted to be addressed. And I was like, if you can't say it, like, learn. Because that's that person's name, and that's how they're wanting to be addressed. And that really bothered me.
Dude, I was just like, what? Like, I just want to be like, psh, psh, like, I just told you, you know, you totally use that, it's all good. But, like, and that's the thing, like, you know, I'm like, I don't care. That's my name. My parents gave me that name. Call me by my name. You know?
Or at least make an effort to learn it.
Like,
you don't have to get it right, but close.
There's something about the effort, the genuine.
And there are people who, I think, from different backgrounds who make a better effort to learn, maybe because they've gone through the same, it's the same thing.
For sure.
And
sometimes we don't find that till late. Like when me and Vinny first started working together, it's almost kind of like you're reinventing yourself, but with your own name. Like, I went by Ari for so long, and all of a sudden, like recently, I've been like, I want to be known as Ari. And I want that R rolled. And Vinny's Māori name is ēnei, and some people at work call him that. And so it's a cool little nod to the culture while still feeling like you. And I love when people ask, like, is it Ari? And I used to say, oh, whatever. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, it's ari. And I'm like firm with it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
I think because I grew up with Tamil being my predominant language for the first 10 years of my life, I noticed the shift of using English more and Tamil less. And I think I felt the diminishing use of Tamil in my everyday life. My parents relied on us to be their English translators as well, so we had that responsibility. I still take my dad to most of his appointments, and I think it's, if they had to do it on their own, they'd struggle a little bit, but they would. But it's also like the emotional support as well, knowing that they're getting my presence and my attention there when they're when they're talking to someone who might be giving them some news that they don't want to hear. So in that sense, language can be a barrier, or it can be like the bridge. It's now that we're a little bit older, we're having to play that role a lot more. When we were little, I think we were able to be more carefree child. And I just wonder how they did all of this on their own when we weren't there to help. So they've done a lot.
And that probably plays a big part in the whole, that our generation can put more effort into, okay, let's learn culture and the language and whatnot, because we have the space, we're settled, funds, means as well, versus their life was
just struggle,
get here, get a job, routine, what do I
daily,
need? We need money for this, we need money for the bills, the kids need to go to school, they need to do this is what they need to get ahead, that needs to be done, and that was their mentality.
I know that it's not talking about language, and it's more of the of their struggles, and but I think that shapes us as people who we are today, and it also makes us realize, I'm going to push for the use of Tamil and the use of my name. Like, these are the things that our parents have allowed us to have by not having it themselves.
Have you ever had anyone in your community that's kind of been like, ko tahi te ture, there's one rule and it's to speak Tamil, or if you don't know how to speak Tamil, that you're not a real Sri Lankan, or something along those lines?
Not so harshly. Like, when, and this goes back to the language that you're comfortable in. So like when the cousins would all hang out, our go-to is English. We'll just be like, oh, did you do this? Right, and like all the jokes and stuff, and like, did you watch that? Wow, there, and then there'll be like auntie or an uncle, or like my mum and dad will be like, do you not know how to speak Tamil? Don't you all know Tamil? Are you incapable of speaking Tamil? And then we're like,
Tamil spoken around the world. You have Indian, South India, you have North Sri Lanka, there's Malay Tamil, Singapore Tamil. Where else do they speak Tamil?
Kerala people mix Tamil and speak it, but that's like their language kind of sounds similar,
Malayalam,
and so they like mix it. Malayalam and Tamil.
So Kerala is a state in India that borders Tamil Nadu, which is where they speak Tamil predominantly. And the Tamil spoken in Tamil Nadu in India is different to how we speak in Sri Lanka. But because most of our Tamil movies are made in India, we watch those and they speak the Indian Tamil, and I think that influences some of how we speak. Because
is it very common to have someone that is Sri Lankan but can't speak Tamil?
In Sydney, there's a massive Sri Lankan Tamil population. And so because there's such a big community, the community's a bit more connected, and it's like they've adapted to times a bit as well. So even they may not necessarily be able to read and write it, but they can speak it.
Well, with my own, my younger brother, he understands everything, but he doesn't speak it. very reserved and doesn't come out to all of the society things that happen here. So in that sense, he doesn't hear it a lot. It's funny because Mum can't speak English very well. So again, with that communication breakdown, sometimes I'm sitting there trying to translate what's going on because Mum will misunderstand what he's trying to say and he will misunderstand what Mum's trying to say, and it's like, oh, there's no need for this.
We have a proverb in Māoridom, which we've talked about on an episode, which is moia te reo, and it's like marry the language. So marry for the language. And I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned it just before, like...
Oh, literally.
Yeah, I was like, does that exist too in the Tamil speaking
a little
community? Find someone from your own language background.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
And I think part of the reason for that is because your parents speak Tamil. You want a partner who can speak to them.
Mm-hmm. The ones that make the effort to even just call them by what their title, like what they should be called, like, Yana Mama or Rangi Yanki. So where they actually make an effort, love them. The ones that are like, nah, I don't speak your language, whatever, I married this person, that's all I care about. Yeah, nah. So they'll try and push for you to find like a Tamil person, or let us find you a Tamil person, And then when you start to hit 30s, they're like, oh, you know what, just find something.
Just marry, please.
You're getting old, we want grandchildren, and then it gets to the point where they're like, oh, we just want you to be happy and settled with someone. So the cultural thingy changes.
Yeah.
Before you had Adi, did you have any thoughts about how you would want to raise your child with language and culture? Did those goals or feelings change after you had him?
Before I had Adi, I don't think I considered language to be a factor that I needed to be mindful of. It was more culture. I definitely wanted to raise him with the values that we feel are important in the Tamil culture. But having had Adi, I think language is definitely more prominent now, because I understand that language is the pathway to the culture. If you understand what's going on, you understand the culture better. And it's like my mother-in-law and my father-in-law live in Sri Lanka, and they usually get to talk to him via WhatsApp, and I feel how sad they are when he doesn't talk to them, because they're not talking about something that he's interested in, or they're not talking in the same language. My in-laws can speak English very well, but I think they feel more comfortable talking in Tamil. What I'm doing to get him to speak Tamil more is speaking to him in English and then saying the same thing in Tamil again, so he understands what I'm saying, and trying to get because my husband talks in English to him now. I've noticed that he used to talk to him in Tamil a lot, but because Adi responds more when he's spoken to in English, my husband's flipped. and so I think we need to have a conversation about getting him to do reading and writing, and that's stuff that me and my husband are responsible for. And he went to Punga, which is the Tamil kindergarten, but I didn't send him to Tamil school this year. Part of the reason is I thought he'd be disruptive in class. He's very active, so I didn't want him to get in trouble with the teachers, because I know it could be a little bit more stricter in Tamil school. And I don't want my child to feel like, I don't want him to dislike it. I want him to enjoy it. And so I thought maybe if he was a little bit older and he had a better attention span, he'd sit down and learn. So I've told him we're going to Tamil school next year, and his other little cousin Anjali is also starting next year, so he'll have someone that he knows that he'll start with. So going back to your question, it wasn't important for me, language, but now I realize it's the gateway. So
Beautiful.
I wish I had done more when he was younger to get him speaking more Tamil.
I really
feel
appreciate you
anything,
saying that. I think our listeners at home will really value that comment. Yeah, I think it'll be really helpful for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Carthi, what do you want
You,
to do with
my
your children?
What I would do a little bit different from what my parents did was, and that this is just down to accessibility and not having as much resources, is to make it a little bit more fun. Because now you can get little activities and whatnot, and I don't want it to be like a boring thing. Because I've got a niece and a nephew now, and I see my brother do this with them, which is what you're doing with Adi now, is that he says it in English and in Tamil, but then at their home, like, he speaks more to her in Tamil and my sister-in-law speaks more in English. But then because they have a nanny and then the nanny uses English as well, and school, she uses English more. So I'd push for more of both at home.
I don't know what Tamil school is like. I've never been, and the teachers there volunteer their time and their effort, and I'm really glad that they do have that a facility available for our children. It's going to be a challenge for us. If we want our children to learn our language, we have to put in the effort.
Do you feel like because Carthi has grown up in Sri Lanka and you're New Zealand born, that your views on language for your future babies are a little bit different, or are they pretty similar?
Different in the sense that he doesn't even think about it. That he was just like, yeah, we're Tamil, our kids will speak Tamil. Yeah, what about
It's
it?
a no-brainer.
Like, what are we talking about, sort of a thing. Like, it's not even. And then when we sit down, we talk about it. I said, things like, when you grew up, you had everybody around you spoke Tamil.
Yeah.
You watched cartoons in Tamil, and so you grew up with that. And I said, versus us here, we only in the last decade probably got the Tamil channels as an option that you can buy here, kind of like Sky. Things we watched was in English. So, we have to be a bit conscious of that. And
There's also a different style of learning as well. So Nish grew up in a very strict school environment where they sit down and they write and they memorize and they learn. Whereas we grew up in school where learning is more fun. And so when it comes to teaching Adi, he thinks that he needs to sit down and write or read. That's it. But he doesn't quite understand that teaching and learning can happen in different ways. So that's a barrier, I think, in how we're gonna get Tamil into Adi's head. Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone that is thinking of starting their language journey?
Do it now. Your brain develops so much more when you learn a language. You open up to a whole new community when you learn a new language. So you won't be poorer for it.
my thing would be is, even if you feel like you might be saying something wrong or not progressing as far or whatever, don't compare yourself to other people. Stick at it and do it at your own pace. I'm having that with my te reo journey now. And one thing is correct people if you know that it's wrong in a nice way. It can be really easy to become disheartened and just stop. So don't do it. Just be better.
Carthi Thuvaraka whakahetailahi lele ki a te kaulua mo te tautala. Tēnei te mihi nui a te ngākau whakaiti ki a kōrua. Thank you both wonderful humans for coming on the show. I have so many highlights of this episode, but one kōrero sparked within me a harking back to Epi 7. Thuvaraka said she wanted to go back and redo her language conversations with her husband. This is important because we didn't cover this in episode 7. You can redo these conversations. If you need to reset your communication tikanga, you can. Just remember, ko tahi te ture he manaaki. Our guests also mentioned how amazed people back home in their homelands of Sri Lanka were to find out people didn't speak Māori here. What do you mean they don't speak it? This is testament to how unusual our situation is here in Aotearoa. And let me tell you, I cannot believe in New Zealand how underprepared we are to communicate with non-English speakers. To the point children can enter a school without being able to do the homework that's being demanded of them. All of that simply defies logic when it comes to what I know about languages. And it's the same for us here with Māori, but we're going to get that logic back through doing what we are doing. So let us know what you think of this epi. You can find us on socials, like our stuff, share it with your friends, and check out the links we might post to topics that we talk about on the show. We love hearing your feedback so long as it's based on a platform of high and reciprocal mana. As always, a massive shout out to Te Matawai and the team at Ata, without whom this podcast would not have been possible. E te whare o te Matawai, te whare o Ata, tēnei māua e mihi atu nei. Alright, that's all from us. Go and get your play lunch and run outside and play. We'll see you next time on Tū Kapu Tū Kōrero.